In the early hours of November 13th, 2022, the police declared 4 University of Idaho students, 21-year-old Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez, and 20-year-old Xana Kernodle and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin, deceased. They were discovered after a 911 call in an off-campus residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. They were all fatally stabbed, but the weapon was not found. An investigation was immediately launched. Earlier the evening, Xana and Ethan attended a party, and Madison and Kaylee went to a sports bar. All of them arrived home before 2 a.m., together with 2 other housemates. The other 2, Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen, were not hurt. Preliminary autopsy results showed that the 4 victims were likely attacked with a large knife and lost their lives sometime after 2 a.m. Latah County Coroner Kathy Mabbitt described their wounds as pretty extensive. The police said that the victims were most likely asleep when they were slain, and some of them had defensive wounds. There was also no sign of indecent assault. The detectives seized the contents of 3 dumpsters near the home to search for possible evidence, and they contact local businesses to determine if a knife had recently been purchased. On November 30th, a vigil was held at the university in honor of the victims, with some family members in attendance. On December 7th, the police announced that they are looking to speak with any occupants of a white Hyundai Elantra from 2011 to 2013 with unknown license plates. They said that the person might have critical information to share. Finally, on December 30th, 7 weeks after the crime happened, the police announced an arrest. The suspect is 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger, a resident of Pullman, Washington, and a doctoral student in criminal justice at Washington State University. Male DNA discovered on a knife sheath was used to directly link Bryan to the crime scene, and the detectives had been tracking his car, a white Hyundai Elantra, and cell phone use in the area. Bryan sent a series of messages to one of the female victims on Instagram. A source said he slid into one of the girl's DMs several times, but she didn't respond. Basically, it was just him saying, "Hey, how are you?" But he did it again and again. He was apprehended in northeastern Pennsylvania, about 2,500 miles from the Idaho campus, and charged with 4 counts of first-degree slaying and burglary. In October 2022, about a month before the crimes, Bryan was pulled over for running a red light in Pullman, Washington. Washington State University campus police let him go with a warning. At a news conference, Moscow Police Chief James Fry said, "What I can tell you is that we have an individual in custody who committed these horrible crimes, and I do believe our community is safe." Ethan's family released a statement about the arrest, saying, "We are relieved this chapter is over because it provides a form of closure. However, it doesn't alter the outcome or alleviate the pain. We miss Ethan, and our family is forever changed." Bryan's family, his father, Michael, his mother, Mary Ann, and his sister, Amanda, also released a statement saying, "First and foremost, we care deeply for the 4 families who have lost their precious children." They added, "There are no words that can adequately express the sadness we feel, and we pray each day for them. We will continue to let the legal process unfold, and as a family we will love and support our son and brother." On January 3rd, 2023, Bryan appeared in court and agreed to be extradited to Idaho and flew the following day and was booked into the Latah County, Idaho jail where he was held without bail. Bryan's apartment in Pullman, Washington, and his parents' home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, were searched. The discoveries included a pillow with a reddish-brown stain, a disposable glove, at least a dozen strands of hair, 4 medical-style gloves, a silver flashlight, and a buccal swab DNA test were discovered. Bryan stood silent during his arraignment when asked to enter a plea. Not guilty pleas were then made on his behalf. Bryan's attorney said in a court filing that there is no connection between him and the slain students and that other men's DNA was also found at the scene. His attorney also claimed that the police investigated various possible suspects, many of whom provided DNA, including at least one who allegedly had his DNA surreptitiously taken from a discarded cigarette, and others who had their phones taken and downloaded. But the prosecutors said that they will seek the end-of-life penalty. The University of Idaho's planned to demolish the King Road residence before the start of the fall semester, but the families of the victims did not want it to happen. An attorney for Kaylee's family said, The home itself has enormous evidentiary value, as well as being the largest, and one of the most important pieces of evidence in the case. The university halted the tearing down. The federal investigators returned to the home to gather more evidence and created a replica of the residence that can be used at trial. On December 28th, the home was demolished. Bryan's defense team submitted an unsealed court document that said that Bryan exhibits core features of autism spectrum disorder, and that if he is found guilty, ending his life would be unconstitutional. His lawyers also said that his mannerisms in court could prejudice the jury in arguing his trial should not allow for capital punishment. New court filings stated that Bryan purchased a knife matching the type of knife sheath found in the home, and that he took a selfie hours after the crimes. Finally, after many delays, it was decided at a pre-trial hearing that the jury selection would start on July 30th, 2025, and the trial's opening statements would start on August 11th, later moved to August 18th. In a sudden turn of events, Bryan appeared ready to accept a deal to plead guilty. A copy of a letter sent to the families of the victims said that the plea deal would ensure Bryan's conviction and secure a life sentence. The families of victims Madison and Ethan have voiced support for the deal, while the families of Xana and Kaylee wanted the case to go to trial. The Mogen family released a statement that said, in part, "The plea deal the prosecution has proposed is one that punishes the perpetrator of this horrific crime, protects the public from further harm, and allows all of us who knew and loved these 4 young people the time to grieve without the anxiety of the long and gruesome trial, years of appeals and potential mistrials along the way." On July 2nd, at a hearing, 30-year-old Bryan pleaded guilty to burglary and 4 counts in the first degree. He did not provide a motive, but agreed that he intentionally took the lives of the 4 victims. He did so to avoid capital punishment. A sentencing date was set for July 23rd. Families of the victims will be allowed to speak. Bryan is expected to be sentenced to 4 life sentences, plus an additional 10 years for the burglary charge. He will be unable to appeal the case, but the deal does not say whether or not he might ever be eligible for parole. Stephen Gonzalez, Kaylee's father, said, "We are going to get our justice." He said that his daughter and Madison had been best friends since the 6th grade, and he had learned that they were in the same bed when their lives were ended. He said, "They went to high school together, then they started looking at colleges, they came here together. They eventually get into the same apartment together, and in the end, they passed away together."